So what we have here with Dune Prophecy is a complete and utter Dune snooze. All right, that's right. I am the man you may know as Z, and I'm here to talk about Dune Prophecy. I am a giant Dune fan. See, look, I have the thing. You know, that thing. You go put your hand in it. Yes, that's right. So, as someone who has read the primary 5 books at least 7 to 8 times each, I am well acquainted with the Dune universe, as I am a pretty large Dune fan. What I find myself, I was not excited for this series because it's lost 2 or 3 showrunners, including Denis Villeneuve himself, and the show sure seems like it has nowhere to go. It really doesn't know what it wants to do. And in fact, what I found the most interesting is that it had a much more interesting story that I think a lot of people would have found compelling had they taken the time to even go into it. But let's take a look. I have a lot to go through just to give you an idea of what's going on. I'll continue to watch it. I'll review every episode if you so choose. If you think it'll be fun, I will do so. But what we're going to look at is, for starters, it looks like it did pretty good. So, living strictly off of the fame of Dune, it did pretty darn good. Let's make it a little bit... Well, that's fine. Dune Prophecy premieres audience grows 75% with next day viewing. So not everybody caught it on Sunday, and a lot of people were watching it overnight just to kind of give themselves an idea as to what was going on exactly. And so... as of right now, it's at 2.1 million viewers. I don't think everybody even knew it was on. And that's pretty much on par with The Penguin. Now, what I think is going to happen that's going to be different, unless the show picks up real quick, real soon, which I just don't think it has the capability of doing, people are going to get tired of it, and they're going to get bored real soon. And what I want to explain is how it connects to the modern Dune universe that we seem to like and enjoy. It does not. It does a very bad job of doing that. So let's take a look. Breaking down the complex family tree in the Dune universe. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just really like this graph because it's really funny and kind of stupid. So essentially, the initial flaw of the show is there are 3 time jumps. 3 of them. And the 3 time jumps do not serve the plot that well. What you end up getting is a time plot. It starts off, it shows you the machine war, and we'll get into that shortly, which I think is a much more interesting story. So it starts with the machine war, then it ages up about 100 years after that, and then it shows you a younger, essentially the Bene Gesserit has been formed, you know, the witches from Dune, and then they give you 30 years after that. So you have 3 different time jumps, and it's not as if they're coherent to the story. They're really just exposition time jumps, and they don't add a lot. But let's take a look at this little chart here. It's like, look, it's Emperor Carino and his wife, and then Prince Carino, the hot dude, and Princess Carino, the chick who gives eyeballs to everybody, who marries like a 6-year-old. And ... 10,000 years ends up being Emperor Shaddam Carino. I don't even think that the time really works like that. Just saying. Somehow Kieran Atreides, the sword master for the Carinos, ... eventually becomes Duke Leto Atreides. They're distant cousins, but we don't know how. It doesn't take 10,000 years for people to be distant cousins. And then this Harkonnen chick eventually becomes the mother to Baron Harkonnen. Right. 10,000 years. Don't forget. And then everybody else. Nobody cares. In fact, I don't even know that the Carino family rules for 10,000 years because that wouldn't make that much sense. Because if you look at things in the future, they're ruled essentially by the Atreides for another 5,000 years. So why would this Carino family be any different from that? It like undermines the entire story of Dune by what they're doing here. So this is stupid. Just if you're into the anything at all that has to do with the lore. The other issue we have is there's a far more interesting story, as I said earlier, in the Machine War. So essentially what happens to mankind is mankind gets so evolved in the future that they make thinking machines. And those thinking machines, technically they have like brains in machines, but then those brains in machines, after living for so many years, end up creating sentient machines that are completely sentient on their own, and they decide that they have to have a war against humanity. Now, why they're fighting the robots with swords does not make sense, because that's not what happens. They use guns and lasers and things, and they have a very advanced technology, and it's called the Butlerian Jihad. And that's where humanity decides they must eliminate all thinking machines whatsoever, must be completely banned. And then what's interesting about that is, how does humanity recover from this war that almost brought them to extinction, right? And what I find interesting about that is, and this is another flaw in the show, in Prophecy, is that you have, they talk about the sandworms. Well, did the sandworms exist during the Machine War? I don't really know that they did. And the whole thing about the spice is actually used to evolve humans. And I think that would have been extremely interesting to talk about. So that's a second more interesting show than the one that we got, where you could have had people, you know, becoming the Bene Gesserit, or people evolving into the you know, because there's a bunch of different factions. But the people who transport them, they're like the fish people, and I can't remember what they're called at the moment. But they can see into space and decide how to navigate. The Guild Navigators. So the Guild, they like don't even explain the company, the Coam. They don't explain any of it. And all of those stories about how the factions will fit together or how they evolved would be far more interesting to hear about than whatever they're doing with this plot, because this plot is not going to be any good. Because what would have been good for them to do was set up all these factions that you would eventually see in the third Dune movie, which is, you know, set to be filmed. So then we'd have an idea of the different factions that you're going to see in the third Dune movie. We would have liked to see Guild Navigators. We would have liked to see the Bene Gesserit. We would have liked to see the people from Ix, who still use the outlawed technology. A fragment of humanity still uses all the banned thinking machines, and it would be interesting to see what they were up to. But we're not going to get any of it, because the plot of this is real, I'm suspecting, going to be real stupid. Just trying to make a projection. Here's a review that I don't agree with, but he's not a bad reviewer. Eric Kane, Dune Prophecy, Episode 1 review. Beautiful, convoluted, uneven, and intriguing. He essentially says the first half of it is boring and too much exposition. He likes the cast. I could care less. If the story's not interesting, I don't care about the cast. The cast is not going to carry the story for me. And they keep telling everything instead of showing anything interesting. Then you get to the second half, which is a little bit more interesting, yet still I don't care what's going to happen to any of these people or how it relates to 10,000 years in the future. There's a stupid clubbing scene, which is incredibly dumb. And I mean, at least there's kind of a plot, but I just don't care. It's just not interesting. And it seems real real convoluted and silly. But he says that he's still intrigued enough to keep watching, which I will keep watching, but I'm not going to be happy about it because it just doesn't feel like Dune, and I just don't think they did a good job of setting up anything else. It's just like, why? What do I care? Where's this going? You know, when you set up a show, you need to have stakes. What are the stakes? I don't think there are any stakes in this. I'm just not convinced that they have stakes. And then, just out of curiosity, was IGN say? And you have to remember, this was rewritten at least twice and had 2 sets of showrunners. So this is already kind of a disaster. Which great house is your favorite? Really? I don't even know any of these houses because you haven't shown us any of the houses. The House Atreides, as far as we know, doesn't even exist. So what are they even talking about? It's very silly. And these, I don't even know if they just made them up. Ordos and Wallach is the name of the planet that the Sisterhood lives on. I don't know that they have a house. And Ordos, I was under the impression was somebody from like one of the 5th or 6th, no, 5th book, 4th book. Anyway, long story short, they gave it a 6. They said it was okay. The first episode lays solid groundwork. Not so sure. Tell me what the stakes are, because it's a prequel. I know the Bene Gesserit don't go anywhere. I know that House Carino doesn't go anywhere. And in fact, you're diminishing the stakes of later books that come out. So way to do that. And then the Harkonnens don't seem so bad right now. Wouldn't it have been interesting to find out where, and maybe they'll show this, I could be wrong, where they get the test to see whether or not a human is a man or a beast? Do you guys remember the Gom Jabbar test that Paul had to take, where he had to stick his hand in the box, or she was going to stab him with the pen, or with the prick him with the poison? Wouldn't it be interesting to see where they came up with that test? Maybe wouldn't it be interesting to find out that there are, humans that are still around after this great reckoning from the machines that are animals that don't deserve to live and fail the Bene Gesserit test? Wouldn't that be interesting? No, she just magically came up with the voice on her own. Nothing, not even how did she do it? How did she train for it? None of it. She just magically one day goes, I figured out the voice. And they don't show the spice, how the Bene Gesserit used the spice to transfer their consciousnesses. Like, they know about the worms. Obviously, they're harvesting spice on Arrakis. It's still important, but no, we're not talking about any of that. So, you guys let me know if you watched it. What do you think? I, for one, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. It's just not that interesting. I don't find the acting that interesting. I don't find anything about it interesting. It looks like a sci-fi special. It's not even risque. They had chances to include, nudity if they wanted to, and it's not interesting. There were uninteresting sex scenes. It is boring, and only one thing that happened that was interesting that I won't spoil. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I, for one, am not pleased as a Dune fan. Just because you show one sandworm doesn't make you... It doesn't seem like these people have actually know that much about Dune. It's like they watch the movies and we're like, oh yeah, we could make a show about this, and never actually read the books or understand any of it. Supposedly it's loosely based on some book, but it's not Frank Herbert, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for listening. Do appreciate it. I am ranting as usual, not as angry as I usually am, but still angry enough. Anyway, thanks so much. Love all y'all, but I'm on to the next one.
Thanks for catching the video. Be sure to join our channel to get the education you deserve. Make sure you check out our shorts, live streams, and catch us on all the socials. Don't forget to like and subscribe.